The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Everyone, welcome to the Arise to Success show. I'm your host in this show. My name is Jihad. Just a bit of a recap of the idea behind the show is that we're bringing inspiring guests to share their stories and their journeys to success, what they do and how they've achieved it. In my personal work as an educational practitioner in personality traits, I analyze individuals' personalities using the model of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I use examples of the companions, the Sahabas, as well as the Prophet's wives, who hold the same personalities as the individual in order to serve as their role models. Similarly, in this show, I want to also bring in role models of today who have inspiring stories to share with us and their journeys behind their success. I want this to be an inspiration to all of us, inshallah. So this brings me to introduce my guest today. But just to let you know, listeners, this is a pre-recorded show, so we're not taking any calls today. But please feel free to send your comments or if you have any feedback on the show, you can send it on WhatsApp or on Facebook. Our WhatsApp number is 07779 481822. And our guest today is Fatima Haji, who is a social media and paid ads strategist. She helps small businesses become visible on social media through creating content and paid advertising. Fatima started out in marketing straight from leaving university. She fell into a job in public relations and loved working, but knew deep down inside that this wasn't exactly what she wanted to do. She tried different forms of marketing and have finally found what she enjoys the most. She wants others to understand that you don't have to be stuck into a job you don't enjoy, but to explore and try new things until you come across what you enjoy. Fatima, thank you very much for joining us on the Arise to Success show today. How are you doing, Fatima?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you, Jihad, for having me. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm doing very well this morning.
Thank you, and great to hear, alhamdulillah. So, Fatima, perhaps if we start, if you can tell us more about you and what is a social media and paid ads strategist?
Okay, right. So we've all heard of like Facebook and Twitter and Threads and Instagram and LinkedIn. That's all social media. And one of my jobs is to make sure that companies, especially like small independent companies, get a chance to showcase their products and what they're selling or their services on those platforms in a way that they get shown to the right people. So I create strategies for them to allow that to happen. It's not just about sort of putting out a few posts and then hoping that you'll get some sales or you'll get some clients. It's like a deep rooted approach. There's a lot of strategies behind like how you can attract the right people to be looking at your content. It's about who you want to sell to, figuring out who your demographics are. And it's businesses sometimes don't understand that. So it's about helping them, creating a strategy for them so that they can understand how best to use their time on social media so that when people are scrolling, they stop and the right people are looking at their products. That's the social media side of this, the strategy side of things. The other side is the paid advertising. So there's a lot of potential. These platforms were all generally created so that there was like an advertising opportunity. And some businesses want to excel quickly and get their products in front of people. And that's what paid advertising is. And it's creating the right strategy for the right business and something that works particularly well for the business. So that's my job, to help them create strategies so that they can become completely visible in front of their ideal audience.
That's quite interesting because my idea behind, posting on social media is just to create a post and put it out there. I never thought about, the audience or the right strategy and so on. So how important is it to target the right audience on social media?
Absolutely. So imagine that you're scrolling through Instagram. So you're scrolling and you're scrolling, you're not going to stop unless it speaks directly to you. So for example, I'll give you a very simple example. If I'm selling a pair of shoes, for example, I need to speak directly to you to tell you that this pair of shoes is right for you. It's not just about putting a picture of the shoe. I need to tell you why you really need that shoe, because imagine how many shoes there are on the market that you could potentially scroll through. So it's ensuring that I give you the benefits of that shoe. So if you've got a particular foot condition, or if you've got a particular occasion that you're going to, a wedding or like an awards evening or something, to make sure that you stop and you say, oh, that's a good idea for the awards night, or, oh yes, I've got that pain in my foot, this shoe is right for me. So it's making sure that messaging is correct and spot on and speaking to that particular person.
And if we don't do this, if we target everybody, is there an advantage? Is there a disadvantage about that?
Targeting everybody is not really a good strategy, because imagine there's like, billions of people scrolling through the internet, right? You've got to stand out. Otherwise, you'll just blend into the crowd. It'll take you a lot longer for success. It's almost like you'll become camouflaged into like, because you've got to kind of help people understand that, hang on a second, this is something that I really need. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to stop scrolling, and I'm going to find out more. Otherwise, you just become part of the background. It's part of the blur, and you just kind of merge into everything else. There's so much content out there. It's just about standing out and, putting yourself out there and really sort of, letting your audience understand that, they need you, or they need this product.
That's quite interesting, because as I said earlier, in my idea, I never thought that there was, a specific strategy to actually posting in social media. So, I would just post to anybody, and I always wondered why I'm not having clients. That's quite interesting. It feels like it's literally like a waste of time just putting content out there and not targeting the right audience, because it's like we're going to really rely on luck whether the right person is going to see it or not.
Yeah. And also, it's like, imagine like you're reading, like you're reading a newspaper, or you're watching general TV. Either you're going to fast forward the ads, or you're going to flick quickly through the newspaper. But if something really stands out and something you really need, or a service that you really want to tap into, you're only going to stop when that speaks to you. It's like any form of traditional marketing, even leaflets that fall through our door. A lot of the time we just take them and then we just throw them in the bin. But unless it's like, if you've got tooth pain and the dentist, throws a leaflet through your door and it speaks right to you, you're going to stop and look at it. Otherwise, it's going to get tossed in the bin.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And talking about leaflets, I'm just wondering here, how important is it to have social media presence in that sense? We are developing into the digital world and so on. So, do we just rely on leaflets? Do we need to have, as businesses, do we need to have that social media presence? How important is that?
So everything in marketing goes hand in hand. So we can't just rely on social media. So we can't just say, right, I'm going to post, I'm going to have the right strategy. Say, for example, if there's companies who are selling products, you've got to make an appearance to events. You've got to be at the forefront. People have got to feel your products. You've got to have a presence somewhere. You've got to decide. You've got to try a few things. For some people, if it's like a local service or a local area, it's worth doing like a leaflet drop, because obviously you're the local person. If you're selling kind of products to a very niche market, you've got to turn up to all the events. So for example, if you're like selling a Muslim inspired product, then you've got to turn up to the Eid festivals and other things, Eid road shows, those kind of things. So the kind of two go hand in hand. I think ideas start on the internet. People are scrolling, people are sort of going to Google search terms and looking at what they want, and then they're sort of, then they'll go to your website, or they'll go to your Instagram profile or your Facebook profile. So it's like almost like a journey for them. And then they'll think, oh, okay, this looks interesting. Where can I see this? So if you're like at the local, if you've got a shop, they might come and visit your shop. If you're at an exhibition, you're sort of saying, I'm going to be at the exhibition. They might make the effort to come to the exhibition. And then they, it's like a journey for them. They may just order the product and say, right, okay, fine. If you've got a good refund policy, I'll send it back. If it doesn't, generally, you keep what you've ordered. So it's a journey. Everything kind of goes hand in hand. It's not just one is greater than the other. You've got to make a presence somewhere else. The biggest thing is the social proofing. It's the more testimonials, the more reviews that you have, the more trustworthy that you become as a business. I think that's really, really important. So if you've got lots of nice reviews, people are saying, people have got your product and they're really enjoying using it, it's always worth encouraging them to put a review on for you, either on your website or either on like Google or, Trustpilot or whatever is appropriate for your industry.
So when you're saying that, I was just relating to the old-fashioned style where we'd have like, face-to-face interactions, and then people spread the word, and that
Yeah,
feels like that's the review back then. And then now moving into, or not moving into, but having more of social media presence, the reviews is more of the spread. Is it equivalent to that spread of word? Would you say that?
absolutely. Yeah. So if you've got a product and you're using it, and you put a review, you're encouraged to put a review. But I'm often asked by businesses, oh, you've used our product, can you put a review? And I will generally put a review on. It's quite nice to leave positive feedback for a business so that they can expand more. But what you generally find then is that when people are looking for that product online, they're less more, oh, we need to see the product, and more trustworthy of just buying the product. So Amazon is a great way, right? Like if you look at somebody like Amazon, the product always has lots and lots of reviews. So you can read, does it, if it's closed, does it fit to the right size? Do I order a size bigger? Do I order a size smaller? It takes away that kind of guesswork. Buying the product, or you need like a bigger socket, or you need these were the disadvantages, so you can kind of adapt and say, okay, right, this is the right product for me. So I think, yes, it has kind of come away from word of mouth, and it has moved more onto online, I would say, yes. Though the other thing that I would say at this point is that you're more likely to share reviews as well. So if you're looking at something and you're sharing it with your friends, and you come across a really nice product, I might send it to like my friend's WhatsApp group and say, look, oh wow, this looks good. Has anybody used it? Or do you know somebody who's used it? It's got really great reviews. So I think that's that works really, really, really well.
Absolutely. And I noticed as one group, some people tend to ask as well, okay, I want to try this product. Has anybody tried it? So then they pass on to each other their reviews and what they think about the product. So yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to go back a little bit to what you said earlier, which is, to try a mixture of different things, to have to spread the word about your business. So you mentioned about face-to-face interactions, social media presence, and so on. Is there a specific reason behind having that presence in different platforms? Is it because some audience would be using social media, some audience are more face to face? What would be the reason behind having that mixture, not just limiting yourself to one specific platform?
So I always advise clients to have a look at what they're selling or the service that they're providing, and having a real deep think about who is their ideal audience, and then thinking about what platform does that ideal audience go to. So is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Right. And because it's really difficult for us to be everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And then to say, okay, I'm going to make my presence on, say, for example, Instagram, right? And I'm going to dedicate a good few months to seeing how well I responded to Instagram, right? But at the same time, to look at your social kind of standing in other places. So, be it if it's local businesses, be it leaflets, if it's the shows. So to kind of use the outside, but concentrate on one aspect of social media. And then after you see success, then move on to other platforms and use them accordingly. I think it's not sustainable to be everywhere all the time. And I think that's where businesses get overwhelmed. They think, okay, I'm going to make my presence on Facebook, I'm going to be there on Twitter, I'm going to be there, and then they just burn out. Whereas if you just posted on one platform, gave it your all, learned the platform inside out, I think you would enjoy it a lot more, because you see that kind of results happening. And then, you can go away to Twitter and say, you can go away to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and say, right, you'll find me on Instagram, and people will come to Instagram to find you. So, you've got that kind of leeway that if that's where you're going to be, tell everybody where you are.
And that's a mistake. I must say I'm guilty of that, because that's what I tried. It's like, what, let me find my audience everywhere. Let me go here, let me go there. And as you said, you get burnt out at the end. It's like, okay, you realize, okay, let me just focus on one at a time and then see how this goes and then move into the next one. Just to remind the listeners, Fatima, is that, we have Fatima on the show today, who's a social media and paid ads strategist. She helps small businesses become visible on social media through creating content and paid advertising. Fatima started out in marketing straight from leaving university. She fell into a job in public relations and loved working, but knew deep down inside that this wasn't exactly what she wanted to do. So she tried different forms of marketing and have finally found what she enjoys the most. So now she wants others to understand that you don't have to be stuck into a job you don't enjoy, but to explore and try new things until you become across what you enjoy. And just to remind everyone here is that this show is pre-recorded. So we're not going to be able to take calls today, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 07779481822. Alternatively, you can also comment on Facebook. So Fatima, talking about social media and so on, we'll move into your journey and your to inspire others about your journey to that success, mashallah. We were just talking about finding the right audience, and I was wondering here, how is there a tip to help us find, think about where we can find our audience? Is that something that you do as part of your job? Or is there something like that can help others who are listening here and like, okay, I don't know where I can find my audience. They could be here, they could be there, they could be anywhere. What would you advise for them to do to help them to make that decision?
That's quite an interesting question, actually. So yes, it is something that I help businesses do. One tip advice I would be like, literally create a persona, name your person, right? Name what kind of life they have. So their demographics, where do they live? How old are they? What job do they have? How much do they earn? What do they do in their free time? What do they enjoy doing? What are their hobbies? Are they like gym goers? Are they theatre goers? And then, take a step back, sit down, look at your person and really think, where would on what platform would this ideal person hang out at, right? So for example, Facebook is like a little bit of an older audience, right? Traditionally. So if you've got like a 50-year-old, 45 plus to about 60-year-old, generally that they're going to be hanging out on a lot of Facebook groups because that's what's familiar to them. If you've got a slightly younger audience, so that kind of over 30s to like 45s, and they're women or even generally men also, they tend to sort of hang out more on Instagram. If it's like if you're sort of more professional, if you're, for example, lawyers, solicitors, IT, those kind of things, they're more, if you're looking for businesses to tap into your services, you're better off on somewhere like LinkedIn. Obviously, that's very general, but it's worth just making that list. And I even provide a photo of that person on the side. So you sit back and you're looking through your list and like think, right, hang on a second, where would this person hang out, right? And and it really is about looking at that list, looking at that person, seeing and taking that step back as a business owner and saying, right, this is the person I want to come to my business. And then asking yourself, this is where they will hang out, and sort of identifying that. I think that's the easiest and the best way to do it.
That's interesting. Do you listen to Russell Brunson?
Sometimes, yes.
Because I remember reading part of his book, and this is a lot of similarities with what you're saying, and he's very well known in marketing. So thank you for sharing this, because that reminded me when I read a part of that book. I'm a person who's not very much into reading, so it's a bit difficult for me to read because I'm more of an auditory person. I like
so you listen to audiobooks then?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I should move into now, because now I'm quite busy, so I stopped kind of reading or listening to any audiobooks. But now we do have that advantage of listening to audiobooks instead of reading if we don't really not into reading. So I'm speaking about myself. But when I read one of his books before, it was a lot of what you're saying here, a lot of similarities here, and that seems to be quite a big thing in marketing. And I realized I didn't do this at the start. I didn't think about my audience, and then we just try to aim for everyone. And someone told me, if you try to aim for everyone, you're not aiming at anyone, right? So I felt like, okay, I wasted a lot of time there. So it's great that you're sharing these tips for anybody who's listening, so that if anybody is thinking about business, that's something that the foundation of their business, in order for them to do that research a little bit at the start and to do those preps at the start before jumping into a business, because that would save a lot of time and a lot of energy. So thank you for sharing that, Fatima. Now, moving a little bit to talk about you. So you loved what you did in public relations, but you deep down inside, that isn't exactly what you wanted to do. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So when I came out of university, you're young, you're naive, you're ready to take on anything that is thrown your way. So I remember sort of one Friday evening, somebody said, right, you need to call this lady. She's got, she's looking for a position, and I think you'd really fit the bill. And I did. I called her on Friday afternoon, and she called me for an interview on Monday, and I was working by Tuesday.
Wow.
It's brilliant. It's very unheard of. And it was a very exciting job. It was government public relations. It was working on a newly formed sort of ethnic minority desk. It was working with ethnic media to let them know about government announcements. It was all very, very exciting. It was all, and when you're out of university, anything new is, I've got a job, I can now start earning, and you give it your all. And I was lucky enough to be really, really enjoying what I did. And I gave it my all for a good 3 years. And then you reach a point where you think, okay, right, I'm going to be thinking about starting a family. Am I really going to be able to go up to events until 10 p.m. at night? Is it really going to be sustainable? And you start questioning those things. And you also reach a stage of a little bit of like fatigue as well, right? When you start giving things your all, and you're working all hours, and you're at the office really early in the morning, and you're staying till really late in the evening, you kind of, you're happy at that stage to kind of give up a bit of your life. But you kind of look at the future and you think, right, okay, I can't really do this with children, I can't really do this with a family. And that's when you sort of I sort of started looking at what else are my options. And you really sometimes get stuck because you're in a job that you really enjoy, but deep down inside that it's not really something that you're going to be able to sustain. You're not really going to be able to take on in the future if you want to have that work-life balance. And you kind of you question yourself. So I started to think about what options I may have, and what the future held. And like with anything, there's no set answer. I found that there's nobody's going to give you an answer. Nobody's going to tell you exactly what to do. It was up to me to figure this out. So I did. I started the family, and I thought, I'm going to take that 1 year of maternity leave, to actually figure out what I really, really want to do. Deep down inside, I just wanted to go back to work. That was what I wanted to do. But I also deep down wanted to spend a lot of time with my children. So you're kind of torn at that point in life, and it's a really hard decision to make. And I think a lot of women, even like sort of 20 years ago, and even now, you sort of think, you're kind of torn, right? So it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult decision to make. So yes, I took the whole year out. I enjoyed spending time with my little one. We did everything, because I didn't know what was next. And then it was coming up to sort of 11 months of maternity leave, and it was like, oh, should I go back 2 days a week? Should I go back 3 days a week? And I just made a conscious decision to say, actually, I'm really enjoying my time with the little one. I'm actually just going to take some more time out, and I resigned from my job. And it was really sad at that time because, like I said, I really enjoyed what I did, and it was hard to say I'm not going to come back to work, and I'm not going to do what I loved. But I think that was the best decision I made, because had I continued, I think it would have been really difficult. I would have been burnt out, and I would have not enjoyed. And it was all, it would be always playing on my mind that I've got a little one at home and I'm at work. So I think it would have been really, really tricky.
Wow, quite interesting. And you mentioned about that work balance and having, to look after yourself as well as your family. How important is that? Is it quite important to take time to look after ourselves, in your opinion, based on the decisions that you've made, or quite important to make that work balance, or do we, a lot of people just kind of just go with the flow? What's your input on that?
I think for me, it is really important to have that balance. I think had I just continued, I would never have discovered other avenues, other areas of life that I, you forget about yourself, you forget about, educating yourself, and growing in your career. Sometimes we just stay stagnant. We just want the next level up. We just want the next level up. And it's just all very, hierarchical. But actually, if you're going to go linear, there's a lot more that you can discover. And also, it's a journey. It's about self-discovery as well, right? It's about who you are as a person.
Yeah. So it's almost like, as you said, for you that kind of, you had to make that decision, and it was hard for you to make that decision of leaving work, but then you realize how important that was. So it's very important to kind of assess your situation as individuals and see what works better for you and what does it work better for you. Take into consideration your situation, your family situation as well, because as you said, you had a little one, you loved what you did, and sometimes we have to make compromises here based on the best decision that we have to make for ourselves. was. And alhamdulillah, that led to something greater happening to yourself, in which you started, your own business, helping other business owners as well. So the question here as well: how did you find what you enjoyed the most, and what would you advise others to do to be able to find that? And we'll end with that question before we go for a break. So yeah, if you can give us a bit of feedback on that.
Okay, so I think for me, what I've learned along the way is to be open, right? If something doesn't feel right, don't do it, right? So for me, I think at that point, I felt like going back to work wasn't right, so I didn't do it. At that time, it was a hard decision, but in hindsight, it's probably the best decision. And that's what I've done for the rest of my life. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it, right? And keep yourself kind of open to opportunities that come your way. So after I went back, I went into a completely different field. I went into running a nursery, and that felt right at the time. And I did that, and it wasn't right. So at the back of my mind, I still had, I need to go into marketing. I need to go back into marketing. I really, really enjoy it. This is really what I wanted to do. So I think it's just don't, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And also keep yourself very open, because what I learned during the time of running my nursery was that there's a lot, you do have a sense of self-discovery as well. What you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing, what aspects of life you do enjoy, and sometimes you have to do things that you don't enjoy to understand what you enjoy.
Yeah, we'll continue that after the break, Fatima, because I think there is more to expand on that. So listeners, thank you for listening so far. Please stay tuned. This is Inspire FM Luton 105.1. We'll see you after the break.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to the Arise to Success show. We have Fatima, who is a social media and paid ads strategist. She helps small businesses become visible on social media through creating content and paid advertising. Fatima started out in marketing straight from leaving university. She fell into a job in public relations and loved working, but knew deep down inside that this wasn't exactly what she wanted to do. So she tried different forms of marketing and have finally found what she enjoys the most. She now wants others to understand that you don't have to be stuck into a job you don't enjoy, but to explore and try new things until you come across what you enjoy. So this is a pre-recorded show, so we're not going to be able to take any calls today, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts or comments on 07779 481822. Alternatively, you can also post those on Facebook. So Fatima, before the break here, we're talking about, social media and what you do and a little bit about your journey. And we kind of, before the break, we were talking about how you found what you enjoyed the most and what would you advise others. And sorry, I had to rush you there because we're going for a break. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or do we move on to the next discussion?
We can move on to the next one. I think we were just talking about, don't, keep yourself quite open. Sometimes you've just got to try new, things that you don't enjoy, and to find out that you don't enjoy them. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I was wondering as well, were there struggles or challenges in finding your passion, what you enjoy? Was it an easy process for you to do? Were there struggles there, and how did you manage to get through those?
Absolutely. There's always struggles in sort of, whatever you choose to do in life. It's never, ever smooth sailing. And I'm sure a lot of people who are tuning in and business owners know that, it's a hard journey. I think I didn't have a clue about running a business. I didn't although I had some management experience of managing and running a team. Running your own team is very different to running somebody else's team. So those are big struggles, right? Because when you're new to business, you don't understand, it's a minefield, what needs to be set up, what doesn't need to be set up. So I think for me, I just went out and looked for support groups. Joined kind of Facebook groups, found paid groups that I could join, where I could ask questions, where there was already an established community. And alhamdulillah, now I'm part of 5 or 6 really good communities of who would help me. So, people who are other social media strategists who work with similar businesses, Muslim sisters who are, also business owners who would be able to answer questions, a friends group that, who joined for a common interest, those kind of things. So I think a support network is definitely, a good way to start to sort of, if you're kind of stuck, because you'll always find somebody who's been through a similar experience. And even now, if I've got an issue with a client, or if I've got a question with a client, I'll always turn to my support group. I think that's really important. But there's nothing goes smooth sailing. I've never heard somebody say it's been the easiest journey that I've ever done in my life.
Course,
it just doesn't exist, right? Because it's a journey. It's you're gonna hit brick walls. You're going to hit, you're going to face challenges, and it's about how you handle those challenges, and how you go about, building your own character to say, yes, okay, I've got this challenge, but every challenge has a solution, and it's going out finding that solution. And it's interesting, just before the break, when you mentioned the books, books that you read. That's a great way, podcasts, books, to expand your knowledge. I've done so many courses along the way. If I feel like, I've got a really big weakness in this area, to go away and do a course. So, it's about the methods that you use to overcome those challenges that are really important.
So you mentioned here support and, kind of self-development as well, because that helps you to progress as well. I want to pay attention to support here. A lot of people struggle not having that support, whether it is, from people closer to them, or, as you said, communities there. What would you recommend? I mean, how important is that support, and what would you recommend for them to do in terms, like, for example, you said you for yourself, you looked for those support groups on Facebook. Are there any tips to help them to get that support if it's quite important to do that? What would be your feedback on this?
Absolutely. So I would say support groups start local. So there are always local business groups that join together for breakfast meetings, for lunch meetings. Just go along, start networking. You never know who you'll bump into, and you never know what advice you'll be given. And then from that, you kind of understand networking and those support groups a bit more. Then you can start looking online and seeing what's available online for you. And then, then the wider groups, it's more the training groups. If you're joining a training course, there's always a support group behind those training courses as well. So if you're training with 5 or 6 other people, don't be afraid to say, hey guys, do you want to, join together to make a support group where we support each other? I was needed to polish up some LinkedIn skills, and joined a course, and there were 8 of us doing the course together. And, I said, right, guys, this is a hard course. It's very intense. Let's get together on a WhatsApp group, and let's help each other through it. And that became a support group. And we still communicate via that support group. We still ask each other questions that we're unsure about. And we help each other, because obviously we've been on a journey together. And it's really important. You don't need to be alone in business at all. There's so many groups, societies, industry-led groups that you could join. Nobody needs to be alone at all. And I think business owners, they do feel like kind of alienated, because they're, they're working hard on their business, but there's just really no need to. There's a lot of people out there. There's women's network groups. There's if Muslim women's network groups. There's so many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, the journey does become a bit lonely sometimes if you try to do it all on your own. And there are, as you said, there are a lot of support groups out there if we just look for them. I remember at the start as well, when I came across Sisters in Business, it was emails I was getting, and I had no idea who Jennifer is, the founder of Sisters in Business. And then I was talking to my friend, I was a bit down at the time, the journey of business can be very lonely, as you've mentioned. And my friend was just like, why don't you drop them an email, see what they offer? And it started that way. I dropped them an email. They're like, okay, we've got an event, come along. And subhanAllah, by going and networking, as soon as I walked through the doors, that sisterhood was just amazing. SubhanAllah, everybody wanting to support one another. And it makes you feel that you have that support. You're not alone in that journey. And subhanAllah, from there, the WhatsApp group for the Sisters of Business was created. This is how I met yourself, and I met so many other sisters, alhamdulillah. And, I ended up having quite a lot of yourselves in my show. So you never know where it leads to, right? It can start with just network, just going somewhere, going to an event, and then a lot of doors start to open from there. So when you said networking there, I thought that's really important to emphasize on that, because in businesses that really, really helps a lot to meet different people, and then you never know where that takes you, alhamdulillah. And that's where, for me, it got me here, where alhamdulillah I'm having lovely guests like yourself to come on this show. So jazakallah khair for sharing that. In terms of facing challenges that you talked about earlier, it can be very difficult if you're lonely. That support really helps. Can you perhaps share with us a bit of your experience on the mindset? What's the healthy mindset towards challenges? Do we look at challenges as something kind of like to put us down, or challenges as a way to help us to progress and go to the next level?
Yeah, that absolutely. So imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? There's other people who are better than me. There's so many of us in the industry. Am I going to be good? Am I not going to be good? That was my biggest challenge. That kind of self-doubt. I'm going alone. I'm going, at that time I didn't have a team that I worked with. And it's that constant, am I good enough? Am I doing a good job? Am I giving my clients and the businesses what they really need? Is it worth me, or could they have done better with somebody else? Or and that's that self-doubt always creeps up somewhere. And even now sometimes, when you think, okay, hang on a second, I want to expand, I want to grow, but am I good enough to grow? It's a constant talk to ourselves. It's constantly telling ourselves that, hang on a second, we've got this far. And I always reminisce about my journey, and I always think, I've come this far. So if I've come this far, I can go further. And it's talking to yourself all the time, or finding a friend in your network group to say, hang on, look, I'm going through this. Just hear me out for a second. And just, what do you think? Getting a second opinion. And, just getting that kind of confidence to say, yes, okay, I've come this far, I can go further. And a few years ago, I started sort of journaling every evening, just sort of 5 minutes at the end of the day to understand what I'd achieved in the day. And I think that's been like a game changer. I think if you just spend 5 minutes at the end of each day, sort of what went right, what went wrong, the what went right gives you the confidence to say, right, okay, hang on a second, this is going well. And the what went wrong gives you time to evaluate and say, yeah, okay, there are gaps in what I'm doing, and this is what I can improve on. I think that's how I find is a good way to overcome the challenges. Lots of people have different strategies, but this really helps me.
No, I love that, actually, that journaling, the positives and negatives, and how can you remember the positive for confidence, and, to help you that actually, you're doing something great, and also the things that may not have gone so well, how can you improve them? So I really like that strategy. How often do you do that? And is it worth doing it once a year, quarterly? What do you think?
I think every day, if you spend 5 minutes every day, I ingrain it into one of my daily prayers. So I just spend 5 minutes at the end of a prayer and say, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes. Just, sometimes it's just thinking. Sometimes I do write it down. I've got a little book that I use. If you just do it on a daily basis, you're growing every day. That little bit of growing. And it doesn't have to be reams of paper. It's just jotting down three things you want to improve on, and just seeing what tomorrow will bring. So just that little bit of reflection at the end of the day.
Now, I really like that, because sometimes we forget the great things that have gone in our day, right? And we just focus on the negatives, and the things that may not have gone so well. I mean, not for everybody, but sometimes we do tend to do that, isn't it? And if we don't do it today, we might do it another day. So I really like how you would end your day with thinking about it, reflecting, so that you can feel great. Okay, I'm doing something great, and there are certain things I can improve on. And that reminds me as well. I think Instagram and I'm not sure about Facebook, but Instagram does that, like by the end of the year, or I think on your birthday, I can't remember, but it kind of shows you about your reflection in the year, and then the reflection the previous year and the previous year as well. So when I was looking at mine, I was like, I have actually achieved quite a bit this year. And, sometimes we think, what have I done? There's so much more I want to do. So I was like, wow, Instagram kind of helped me to see what I've achieved. So we can do that ourselves through the reflections and the journaling, whether it is daily, and it works differently for everybody. So for yourself, work daily. For me, I think, I really like the strategy that you provided there, where you just reflect at the end of the day, see what you've done and how you can move forward with that. So thank you. I think that's a really, really great strategy. Thank you for for sharing this.
I think as a business owner, just generally, you do like quarterly reviews, mid-year reviews, and then end of year reviews. So I think for the bigger picture, so the bigger things, those are quite important, right? Sort of it frames what you've achieved in 3 months or 6 months or whatever you're doing and where you're going for the next 3 months. So it gives you some kind of a direction, so that you're not, it's like the Instagram posting, like you said earlier, it's like I'm posting. But if you don't know what you're posting and what your aim is for the next 3 months, it becomes a little bit like, if you haven't got any direction, then, this gives you that little bit of direction.
No, that's great. And we'll talk about goals and directions, but I thought I'd just remind the listeners that we have Fatima on the show today, who's a social media and paid ad strategist. She helps small businesses become visible on social media through creating content and paid advertising. So Fatima, we're just talking about goals and, how important is that to set goals, to set plans and to know where you're going and to reflect on those as businesses? Is that important? Do we just
As a strategist, you can't build a strategy without a goal. So it's super important, right? So yes, every strategy I build has a goal. So I'll look at goals every 3 months. But one thing that I do always remember is that goals need to be flexible. They need to be changeable, right? So you can't say, okay, right, in 3 months' time, I did not achieve these goals, but I'm going to try again in 3 months' time. You've got to look at what didn't go right. Why didn't you achieve those goals, right? For example, was there something that stopped? Has the market changed? Has the demographic changed? And then reset your goals, realign yourself. Don't just continue what you're doing. It's just, rethink, why didn't this work? I provide all my clients a monthly report and I always look at what went well in the month. But hang on, we didn't have a great month this month. So we've got to change tact and we've got to change strategy this month because we're not achieving what we want to do. So we've got to change. So, we've got to change our goals to meet our target. And if we can be flexible, we can achieve a bit more the following, because, it's very easy to month on month say, right, okay, it didn't work. Okay, it didn't work. And then you kind of lose interest at the end of the day. But if you're flexible and, you kind of adapt and you sort of look and you evaluate, it's a lot easier to then achieve the following month.
So am I right to conclude from what you said is that to kind of have a big goal or a vision and then to reach that vision, have small goals and then review those goals from time to time and be flexible on, on those goals in case it needs to be changed a little bit in order to meet that vision?
Yeah. So your vision, if you're a business, your vision is always like, a greater sales, more booking appointments, greater awareness of your brands. Those are like the big things. And the goals is how you're going to get there. Right. So, that's kind of, that's generally what you want. You want more clients, you want, more sales, those are generally, as a business, that's what you'd want. Right. So it's literally how you get there.
Yeah, and that's a strategy as well that I guess people can also build, kind of adapt in other aspects in life as well. We're talking about business here, but I'm assuming that this can be adapted in other parts of their lives. For example, if they want to, if they're in a job, for instance, or, if they, whatever it is, having that big goal and then setting smaller goals to work towards, or even like, for example, losing weight, right? That's like a big goal. I want to lose this amount of weight, but then what are the small goals in order, or the small steps in order to achieve that?
How do you say that? Because that was what was going through my mind as well.
Because that's something I've noticed that's something a lot of people say. And I had a friend that every year she's like, yep, for 2018, I'm going to lose weight. 2019, I'm going to lose weight. I'm hearing the same thing every year, but it's not getting anywhere. And, that's probably because the small steps in order to get there is not happening. Great vision, you have something great that you want to achieve. But if you don't set a plan that you were talking about, then it's difficult to achieve that. So that's why I was thinking, okay, if other listeners, who are not into business, who don't have a business, but this is something that can apply in other areas of their lives as well. So thank you for sharing that. Just coming back to what your bio, where you said that you want others to understand how they want to understand and know that they don't have to be stuck in jobs they don't enjoy and explore new things. How can they do this? And what about those who don't really like to take risks and they want to stay comfortable where they are, although they may not be so happy? What would you advise them?
Okay, so it's, for me, it's very, I guess in hindsight, it's very simple. If you don't try new things, you'll never know what you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So it is very scary. It's very scary to say, I'm going to leave my job and try something new, because you think, okay, maybe what if I don't enjoy that? But now the world has changed. There's different ways to try new things as well. Like, there's lots of online courses, there's lots of MOOCs, there's lots of, opportunities to kind of have side jobs, side hustles. Now the world has kind of changed, and like there's lots of opportunities. You don't have to leave what you're doing currently in order to experience something. There's taster days, there's taster courses, there's groups that you can join to try new things, and don't be scared. I think people are just frightened that if and obviously because there's like, a wage and a salary involved, and you don't want to, disrupt that, especially if you're like, part of a family where, they're relying on you for a commitment. But, there's lots of opportunities on the weekends, in the evenings, because you don't actually have to leave your home now to even try new things. And if you don't try, you'll never know. And that's very true for me as well. Like if I hadn't left my job at that point, I think I would still be stuck doing the same thing, and I would never have discovered something that I enjoy. Because right now, when I'm working, I'm enjoying every single minute of that workday, and I'm happy to give it that 100%. Whereas I think if I'd continued, I might have been burnt out and maybe giving like say 50% or 60% of it. But and I've adapted. I've done different things along the way, and said, right, I enjoy this aspect. Let's move on to this aspect. Let's develop this a bit more. It's all kind of self-discovery to a certain extent. But you've got to take the plunge, and you've got to kind of say, right, okay, I'm either happy or I'm not happy, or I could be happier. But the only way to get that happiness is I'm going to try new things, and guaranteed you'll find something that you'll definitely enjoy.
I like that because it feels like, it's if we stay in a place of safety, we could be missing out on opportunities. And that reminds me of a game I was playing with my friends, Ludo, and we were partners. So my partner she likes to take risks, and remember our opponent, they were two. And they were like, remain safe, remain safe, remain safe. Yeah, you in Ludo, there is a place where if you just stay there, you can't be eaten. And then they were like, just stay safe, stay safe. And then my partner was like, I'm going to eat you all. And she was literally trying to go around eating everybody. And then she won. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have won. It just, kind of reminded me here, sometimes we need to take risks, because if we don't, we're going to be missing out on opportunities. And I like
it's calculated risks as well. You don't have to say, right, I'm going to have a complete life career change. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do. You don't have to do that. You just take small steps into discovering new things. They don't have to be big.
Absolutely. And that's the part I was going to get into as well, is that you've mentioned that you don't have to leave your job completely, because I do see a lot of those ads, what, leave your job, leave your 9 to 5 and start a business, and then people get stuck and then they go back to 9 to 5. So you can do it besides, what you're already doing. So for example, having a part-time work, for instance, until you set up your business, until it gets to a level where it's bringing you enough income to keep going, and then you can progress it from there. So take risks, while you already have something stable, because there are different kinds of individuals. And because I work with around personalities, there are personalities that are very willing to take risks. They drop everything, they move on, and they do, some of them, they do become very successful. There are some personalities that don't like to take risks, and that's why we say, as you mentioned, while you're already doing something, start something different or explore other things, take on opportunities. So here, if we have listeners from the different personalities, these are different options, and then they can follow what they feel comfortable with. Fatima, I'm cautious of time here, so perhaps before I ask the last question, if you can tell us where listeners can find you, if you have a platform, for example, if they want to learn more about, the work that you do, because, when I introduced you at the start and I asked you to tell us more about what you do, I never knew that there is, for example, in business, you have to have a specific strategy in your social media presence, because social media seems like, as it says, social, right? Rather than something that we can use strategically when it comes to business. So if listeners want to learn more about that, and there are a lot of the sisters out there that I've interviewed as well, they provide a lot of resources, a lot of tips that the listeners can benefit from in their platforms. Is there a platform where they can reach you, where they can learn more about what you do and the work that you do to help businesses?
Absolutely. So I've 3 ways. The easiest 3 ways are my website, www.iforsocial.com. I'm on Instagram under @_iforsocial. And I do hang out quite a bit on LinkedIn as well. So I'm Fatima Haji on LinkedIn. So those are the ways that, that I can be found.
Great. Jazakallah khair for that. And if we perhaps end with, if you can tell us, what do you advise others to do today to find their passion and what they enjoy?
Do a brain dump. Get a piece of paper. Think of all the things that you would love to achieve in life. And then maybe take a highlighter and highlight, say, 5 or 6 of the ones that are the most important. That if you turned 80 and you hadn't achieved, that you would be quite upset about. I think that, that will really identify what you want and what your kind of purpose in life is. And then just explore those 5 or 6 options, because we all have like a million thoughts whirling around in our head every single day. What if this, that, the other, but if we could just, if you just put it down on paper, it's there, it's visually in front of you, your kind of wants and your kind of aspirations and your kind of dreams. Just dump them all on a piece of paper and then look at the ones that are those 5 or 6 that you really, think, oh, okay, those, if I could achieve these, in the next few years, I'd be really happy. I've been told about the rocking chair. It just came to my head when I mentioned 80. So, I can't remember who it is, but it said, just imagine yourself on a rocking chair when you're 80 and you're rocking away. And what would you be happy if you had achieved at the age of 80? Inshallah, we'll all get there. But if you're rocking, what would you be happy if you'd achieved? And that kind of gives you that aspiration, what you want.
This is powerful, because, when you're saying that rocking chair and you're rocking at the age of 80, I'm just thinking, what, if somebody has not, I'm thinking about myself, if I haven't achieved what I want, I'll be like, oh my God, that would not be a very nice place to be in.
Yeah.
So it's nice to think about it in advance so that you make sure that when you are at that age, you've achieved what you want. And I really like how you said kind of like, put everything in paper, and you don't have to do all of them, but focus on just 5 of them, for example. And then you've got the next step, I'm assuming, is what you mentioned earlier, is that the planning strategically how you can achieve it.
Yeah.
So thank you. Sorry, Fatima, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on in what you say.
Yeah, so thank you for that. It's been a great, interview today, Fatima, with a lot of, strategies on how we can plan our timing, how we can move forward, how we can take care of ourselves, keeping that balance as well that you've shared, how we can self-develop ourselves as well, and make sure that we achieve what we want. So just, to end, just a reminder that we had Fatima today, who's a social media and paid ad strategist, and she helps small businesses become visible on social media through creating content and paid advertising. This was a recorded show. So Fatima, firstly, thank you very much for being here with us and for sharing all the amazing things that you've shared, which I've really, really enjoyed. Listeners, I hope that you have enjoyed that as well. And thank you very much for tuning in and being here with us. We will be having, inshallah, future episodes with, other guests sharing their stories. So please do stay tuned. And if you are or you know someone who would like to share your story in our radio show to inspire others, please do get in touch on 0779 481822. Fatima, thank you again. Jazakallah khair, and thank you to everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.